Welcome, everyone. Real excited to have you here. My name is Alex Portera. I am a fundraising partner with HEVO. We have a really exciting webinar today talking about all sorts of things about wireless EV charging, about autonomous vehicles. We've got three incredible panelists here and Jeremy McCool, CEO of HEVO. What we're going to do, I'm going to introduce everyone so you know who's on the panel. I'm going to pass it off to Jeremy, who's going to talk a bit, and then each panelist is going to talk about how they came into the HEVO ecosystem as investors and advisors, and a number of other things that they're seeing in the marketplace. We'll have some time for Q&A towards the end of this session, and then we'll wrap things up. Just so you all know, you're probably aware already, but HEVO is currently raising a round on WeFunder. That round is open. You can just go to wefunder.com/HEVO to check it out. We have seen really phenomenal excitement and momentum so far in just the first few weeks of this campaign, and we're really excited for where it's going to go. And I think after this webinar, you will all be even more excited about what HEVO's up to than you are right now. So really quickly, I'm just going to go around and introduce everyone. Most of you probably already know Jeremy McCool, the CEO and founder of HEVO. We've got Lieutenant General Ross Kaufman, who's actually Jeremy's former Army commander, a HEVO investor, and the CEO of Forward Edge AI. During his time in the Army, he led the development of new combat vehicles, including EVs, and is now working on bringing autonomy to EV fleets at places like Amazon. We have Charles Molnar, who's the global head of strategy and programs at Amazon. He is a HEVO investor as well, a seasoned investor and senior executive with over 20 years of leadership experience across Fortune 50 companies and hypergrowth environments. And then we have Omar Anwar, who is the chief technology advisor to HEVO, who brings over 24 years of engineering leadership to HEVO with proven expertise in power conversion, embedded systems, and energy storage that directly advances what HEVO is doing with wireless charging innovation. I'm very excited to introduce all these people, and Jeremy, I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, welcome everybody. First and foremost, I got to thank the panelists. Each one of these people have been part of this journey, and I got to be very honest, I couldn't do it without people like them. Ross is going to tell you here shortly a story about how he first heard about HEVO. And then Charles will hopefully tell you a little bit about our relationship in the Army. And who knows, we might hear a story from Omar about when we were building HEVO in the beginning. So, first and foremost, this is $1 trillion market opportunity. And I just returned from Austin, and I saw vehicles doing robotaxis and Waymo across the city. And what I found was that this is a pioneering time for wireless charging and for EVs. And so as we start to look at what's next for everything related to not just HEVO, but also to what we're doing with, companies like Atlantis and these big automakers, we have to be ready to go for wireless charging. This is the Wi-Fi moment for wireless charging. And so as we start to look at how big of a market we have here, what we see is not just HEVO, of course, but the total autonomous EV market. We see something that looks like trillions of dollars of rollout opportunity. And as I start to look at some of the market data that is out there, Tesla is rolling out robotaxis right now as we speak in Austin. And they're forecasting that this is their $1 trillion bonanza that they're pulling out for their robotaxis. And Austin is in our view, particularly right now, kind of the hub for electric vehicles and autonomy, because obviously Tesla is manufacturing there, but also Waymo has already launched there. They have 60 vehicles that are currently being used today, and that they're going to grow that to 200 vehicles in the next couple of years and up to 400 vehicles maybe in the next 2 to 3 years. So they're seeing that the data is they're getting 250,000 riders per week at Waymo right now. but they see that going to millions of riders in a per week basis in just a couple of years. Now, I want to go through a couple of the companies that are highly focused on autonomy, and we're going to talk a bit more about these and how they might integrate into the HEVO ecosystem as we start to think about building this out. But right now, as we look at it, Tesla's deploying, Waymo's deploying, and Cruise, you might recall that name. They faced some challenges a couple of years ago, but there's a possibility we might see Cruise come back. While I was in Austin, I did hear from city leaders that it does look like Cruise might be trying to make a comeback into the space. And that would be great for General Motors if they did that, because clearly they saw positivity from it. They were ahead of everybody else for a moment before this setback that they had. But the relaunch does look like it could be targeting towards San Francisco and a few other locations. Amazon is deploying Zoox vehicles, which are more of like a passenger van style. If you haven't seen a Zoox, it looks like a shuttle, and they are deploying those right now in places like Las Vegas and San Francisco. However, we'll just say their rollout strategy is a little bit different than what we're going to see from Waymo and from Tesla with robotaxis. So here's the crux of the whole conversation. What are they going to do to charge these cars? Because what we've heard from, and as you'll hear here in a little bit from some of the people that are on this panel, what we've heard from people that are deploying even electric vehicles, especially in these kind of fleet programs, is typically, obviously, they're all plugging in the car today. But if you have a fleet, say, like Amazon, who is operating Rivians right now all around the world, and they're doing it very successfully. In fact, I just saw something that happened recently that Amazon's delivered its 1 billionth delivery using electric vehicles already today. So they're clearly seeing this play out real time successfully. How can we build a model for them that makes EV adoption faster with wireless charging and autonomy? Because autonomous level 2, 3, and 4 already do exist and they're being used daily. That means then they're having people still plug in these cars unnecessarily, which is a huge cost. Some of the reports that we've heard is up to $100 per an hour for a charging attendant, which is just not a sustainable model. And there's other peculiarities of things, especially related to the fleet model, where you've got Amazon and other companies trying to use multiple drivers to do something like parking in a vehicle bay area. That's going to be cost overruns. So as I start to pass this off over to Ross, the key point of the story here is we are seeing autonomy come to the market real time right now. And we're all living in this world together in a fast-paced technology innovation environment, especially in places like Austin, San Francisco, and Phoenix. If we're going to have autonomy be a real opportunity for everybody to participate in, we cannot see a future without wireless charging. So now I'm going to pass it over to my friend Ross, my former commander and boss. He was my last boss before I got out of the Army, so he'll be able to tell you some stories. But we're looking forward to the rest of the panelists here talking about how they see the future of autonomy and wireless charging rolling out over the course of the next several years. So I'm passing it over to Ross. Ross, go ahead and take it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. I'm Ross Kaufman, and I live in Austin, Texas. The duality of my screen is interesting because we have the West Coast and really California behind me, and I sit in Austin, Texas. And I think that the absolute epicenter of the future when it comes to autonomous vehicles, wireless charging is where I sit. So I've got California behind me, and I think I represent the location where this is really going to take off based on proximity of innovation, as well as just the propensity of the Austinites to adapt new technology to their current lives. It's just amazing. Jeremy and I met in 2008, and he was a lieutenant in the best battalion in the United States Army. That's 164 Armor. And in order to get out of the Army, you have to bring a piece of paper and your hat in hand and go see the battalion commander and say, I'd like to pursue other options. And I always try to get the good ones like Jeremy to stay in. So I said, well, what's your plan? Now, remember, this is 2008. He said, well, what I'd really like to do is I want to go get additional schooling in New York. And then I want to start a wireless charging company for EVs. And I thought, the boys on crack. Okay, like with this EV thing, that it's who's thinking this is going to take off? And then we're going to need, induction charging, but he's a visionary. And so for the last several years, he has built HEVO up to the premier wireless charging in the world. And then, as happenstance, I'm sitting in Poland and the phone rings. This is in 2018. They say, we're moving you to Detroit. Now, I was a one-star general at the time, and I was like, what combat units in Detroit? They said, well, there's no combat units in Detroit. I said, yeah, well, why the hell are you sending me there? All I've ever done is fight or train people to fight. He said, you're going to go build all new robots and vehicles for our Army. So I got a 4-year degree in muddy boots of robotics, autonomy, charging, and power. And so I became very, very deep in the subject. And because of that, it made me think of Jeremy. And I knew I wanted to invest in HEVO at that point. I saw the future. I was not as quick to the realization as Jeremy was, but as soon as that happened, I said, I know a great leader. He's a great founder. He had the vision, and he's leading the world in this space. And so I put my personal money behind Jeremy because I knew that it would be successful. And now we have the EV boom. It is absolutely everywhere you look. You see EVs, and now you see autonomous EVs. So how are they going to be secured, first of all, which gets to my role with Ford Edge AI. But secondly, how are you going to charge them? Why would you have an autonomous EV that requires a human to go plug it in? Doesn't make any sense. And so HEVO solves that problem. And because of my experience, I sit on the board of advisors for several companies. I got precision autonomy companies like Steer. I've got long haul companies like Kodiak that I help. And I've got a autonomy test company called Edge Case that is absolutely going to change how we test autonomy going forward. But autonomy is not enough. It's power, power, power. That's the answer to every question today. Whether you're looking at data centers, whether you're looking at the grid, whether you're looking at utilities, it doesn't matter. Everybody wants power. And HEVO solves that problem more efficiently for EVs than anyone else. So it just doesn't make any sense that you would have to plug your car in today. This is the future. And I am so excited to be on this ride with Jeremy and the team that he's assembled, because you're gonna wake up one day and think of a wired charging system like a VHS. Like, I can't believe we ever did that. Why didn't we have induction charging in every place we go? So this is the future, and I am excited to be here. So thanks for inviting me, Jeremy.
Thanks, Ross. I really appreciate that. Thank you for also helping me out along the journey and HEVO with opening the doors that you have and continuing to be such a great friend and advisor and mentor over these many years. And so I'm going to pass it over to another person who was in that journey with us, Charles. And Charles, go ahead and take it away. Thank you, Ross.
Jeremy. So to kind of set the context of how Jeremy and I know each other, we met about 20 years ago on a cold November morning, standing on a parade ground on an army base, sizing each other up to see who was going to take dominance in the squad. as we prepared for our Army physical fitness test on day one of being infantry officers. Like all things, there are people that we will work with and we will meet throughout our lives, right? And some of those people we will connect with and we will stay in touch forever. And other people, we will connect with them once every 6, 7 years if our paths happen to cross. And some people we'll probably never talk to again. Well, Jeremy was one of the folks that, we stayed connected really our whole lives. So I've been following HEVO as a company since it was really dreamt and born at grad school with Jeremy and his team, and then Jeremy and I continued to stay in touch, and we would talk about HEVO as a company. We talked about some of the early days of how Jeremy was getting funding around, winning case competitions, when this was just a concept, right? There was no product. It was an idea on some slides, maybe a couple of patents or patents that were being developed. But, I had the opportunity to continue that dialogue with Jeremy, and so I made an investment at one point. And I didn't invest in HEVO because there was this product that was going to change the world. I invested in HEVO at the time because I believed in Jeremy. Similar to Ross, I knew Jeremy's background. I know that Jeremy is an all-in kind of person. And I knew that Jeremy is the type of guy that's not going to give up. And so I made that investment. And then as I continued my career and Jeremy continued his career in parallel paths, I made additional investments, right? I saw the progress that was happening. I saw where things were going in the market. And then about 3 years ago, I think it was, I was out in New York for business, and I had an opportunity to stop by HEVO's headquarters there in Red Hook. And I knew that there was prototypes at this point. There were products out in the market, testing with various big OEMs and tier one suppliers and so forth. And it was just a great opportunity to catch up with Jeremy. But I had the chance to meet his team too. And I could see the facility, I could see the business offices, I could see the laboratory, I could see the test areas. I could actually see how a car is guided over top of the pad in order to charge, right? And I could see the care that the team took of the facility itself. Right. And then I became a believer in the team as well, beyond just Jeremy. Right. And so I remember leaving that day, Jeremy and I went out to dinner. But before I left the office that day, before Jeremy and I went out to dinner, I asked Jeremy to send me the account details. And so I didn't need a capital call. I just said, hey, send me the wire details for JP Morgan. And I wrote another check and just offered up more funding without being asked, because I believe in Jeremy. I believed in the team. I saw the operation as it was taking place, and I had the opportunity to kind of do that due diligence on myself to make sure that, my money, my investment was being handled appropriately by the team. And I believed in that team following that 100% and then some. And so, when I think about the application of autonomy and wireless charging, I know today we're talking about it in terms of the personal automobile, fleet vehicles, whether those are vans or trucks. But it's beyond that, right? If we think about all the application here, we're just cutting one small piece of the vehicle segment. There are X number times more power industrial vehicles than there are probably personal vehicles on the road, right? When you think about the skyjacks, scissor lifts, forklifts, right? All these things that run through big warehouses, all the things that run through 3PLs and manufacturing centers and all this other stuff, those are all powered by a variety of different types of power, right? Some are electric that are plug-in, some are powered by propane, others by hydrogen, but all that stuff takes up space. It takes up a lot of space. But when you think about the opportunity to remove a person out of the mix, and as an example, a good colleague of mine works with a company that sells autonomous forklifts. Right? There is nobody on the forklift. In their location, right, there is a path. An autonomous forklift drives to the racking. It gets the material. It drives back. The problem, however, is that forklift runs on propane, right? Somebody's got to fill up that propane tank, right? You got to have a person there. So the opportunity to leverage an autonomous vehicle to do the work, move the product where it needs to go, and then park itself over top so that it can refuel itself is just incredible, right? It's a huge opportunity to unlock the value that people bring from a thought perspective, right? And repurpose them for additional work types so they can continue to add value and think about that next iteration of great new idea. And so I'm super excited to be here. I know Jeremy and I connect pretty regularly on not just the thought of the company and where it can go, but just life in general. I appreciate the other panelists that are here and their thoughts, but I'm just super excited about HEVO, about the opportunity, and really I think we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah, thanks for that. And just so you guys know, Charles did win when it came to us being on the parade field, whether it was at PT or also all of our combatives. He is an expert in BJJ, and he's tapped out a lot of big men in his life. I've personally seen it. So we're going to talk about now the technology landscape. Thanks a lot, Charles. Always good to see you. We're going to talk about the technology landscape, how HEVO is looking at it from a perspective, how can we differentiate ourselves and be in a position to win this market and enable the autonomous electric vehicle future. I'm handing it over now to Omar.
Hi, everybody. And actually, thank you so much, Jeremy, for inviting me here. And of course, thank you, HEVO, really, for letting me be part of this amazing, amazing journey that we had together. For a little background about how it came about for people listening in, when I first met Jeremy and got introduced to HEVO in late 2015, I could see the vision and the problem space and how clear Jeremy has been, as a leader to understand I would say, the dynamics of the market that did not really exist in all the with all the fanfare that it is happening today. But he could still see down into the future and realize that eventually all of these electric vehicles will have one very common pitfall. Somebody has to fuel them up somehow. It's going to be a complicated problem for people. They are, because they are used to the old gas station idea of operating their vehicles. And this paradigm is going to change so rapidly that people, when they look back, will, as Ross also said, will think as if, why did the VHS even existed? And they'll relate to the times of the telephone, which used to be connected via a cord, and people had to stand next to it to be able to talk to somebody else. And now we have cell phones. So same is actually happening, and I can see it happening when it comes to wireless delivery of power to electric vehicles. From a technology perspective, over the years, as developing products at HEVO, and of course looking at the market segment, I've been feeling that the problem has been academically solved many years ago, as far as long as when Michael Faraday came up with the laws of induction, and people started making electric transformers, and the whole Tesla thing happened, and now we have electricity everywhere based on these transformers, solely based on one principle of physics, induction. Similar is happening, going to be happening now. I would see quite rapidly when we deploy this law of inductions using our wireless charging equipment. Same principle, same idea, same level of reliability. And the big thing is that the experience that comes with it. No more wires or fuel station visits, or perhaps even thinking about running out of fuels in case we go into an era of dynamic charging as well. So, and this is happening. It's nothing that I'm talking about which is very futuristic. I have seen, from the front lines really, that how this technology has been making, inroads into the people's life, from something which is in advanced stages of lab development, and into some products which are almost ready to go into the field to our customers. So what I can say in a nutshell is it's happening. Is going to happen whether we like it or not, and I would like to be part of a group where I'll be at the front lines to actually witness it happen, and be perhaps have my hands in it as well. So given that, I can see, and we talk a lot about autonomous vehicles, and we talk about, and maybe if I might sound a little bit cuckoo to people, but space, let's not forget that it's also coming up. This autonomous vehicle operation outside of Earth's operation is also a thing. I mean, wherever humans go, we need a means to carry stuff from A to B, and we will need, I would say, energy to do that. And these vehicles, wherever they are, whether here, away from us, will need power. There is no gas station anywhere that I can see. gas station is something that we made for our experience of the vehicle of today, and all of that is changing. I do not know how else to tell you guys how fast it is because it is going to be a blink of an eye as far as the technology changeover is concerned. Next few years, places like Korea have already are on the very advanced mode of this. They are like, saying people, let's go for it, guys. Wireless buses, wireless vehicles, autonomous vehicles, and same strides are being made in United States as well. So this is the little spiel I have for people. I mean, it's open for questions if you guys when we come around to that part.
Well, I'm gonna help out with a few things. We are gonna come to the Q&A portion here in just a minute, so people will be able to ask questions. But Ross, I've heard you say it before, and your personal experience in autonomous fleet management with using specific autonomous technology. I remember you calling it the invisible tax on the fleet operation for basically plugging in the car, because if you're a fleet manager, and we're talking about one of the largest fleets in the world, if you're a fleet manager and you have to resolve now not only figuring out how you do plug-in charging, but it's going to take up extra space and all these other material problems. How do you see, from what your experience has already been, Ross, how wireless charging could actually improve early autonomous EV adoption at the fleet level?
Yeah, I
And maybe
mean,
there's a metric there in the form of the cost that it might be able to improve upon.
yeah, all right. Well, let's just talk about healthcare, pay, workers' compensation. There's an obvious savings in just getting a human uninvolved with the charging process. But really, I think what we need to do is we need to think about how does this help us manage the data? So when immediately upon pulling in, we can start pulling data from our fleet. Right off the CAN bus, we can get maintenance data. We can do predictive logistics. We can do prognostics. That data can begin immediately rather than waiting for someone who's getting paid minimum wage, doesn't really care, walking down a line, plugging in, plugging in, plugging in. You're losing data opportunities immediately. And when you're managing a huge fleet that's required for all the big box stores, Amazon, FedEx, all these fleets are ginormous. And so in order to maximize your opportunity and maximize your decision time, this induction charging begins that immediately. And I think that cannot be overlooked. And if not, as I've said, is you're placing an invisible tax on yourself by staying in the past with corded charging.
Charles, thank you for that. Charles, do you see, because obviously your focus is really towards efficiency gains, and do you see there an opportunity to create greater efficiency from a wireless charging platform with autonomy than you would for plug-in charging with electric cars, perhaps at a larger fleet level or a fleet operation? And I know obviously we've got to not just be thoughtful about how this might look for the viewpoint of Amazon, but how it might actually play out for some of these other companies that I'm sure you've advised in the past as well. So is there some gain of efficiency there that you can realize?
Yeah, absolutely there is. When we think about what an autonomous vehicle can do, because for an autonomous vehicle to really be successful, right, there has to be a predetermined path at which it travels, right? But the nice thing about having an autonomous vehicle that has the various sensors and radars on it is that they can move at a speed. They can speed up or slow down by knowing the proximity of the other vehicles around it, right? And so that could essentially allow an autonomous vehicle, to move unencumbered from point A to point B at the speed that it needs to in the most efficient pattern possible, or the most efficient path. So then as it gets up into that charging point, right, it can simply make the turn that it needs to make. It can park where it needs to park, and then that charging can take place between the pad and the receiver on on the vehicle, right? Whatever type of vehicle that is. In addition to that, right, it removes the bottlenecks and the backlogs that can take place. It limits the amount of accidents that will take place. Not to say that it would eliminate accidents, because they could still happen potentially, but it minimizes the opportunity for that. But then more importantly, it starts to charge immediately, and then it can get back doing what it needs to do in order to, support whatever the business is, right? It doesn't need to wait for a human to come around, plug something in, and go down that line in order to get back doing what it needs to do, right? So when we think about big manufacturing centers, right? Whether it's automotive, consumer products, we think about third-party logistics companies, that move freight. Maybe they inbound from a port. Freight sits somewhere, right? And then it goes from first mile to middle mile to last mile. All of that adds up time. And when we think about the total amount of vehicles and the total amount of steps that have to take place there, right? A 0.5% or a 1% opportunity to save can result in millions or billions of dollars.
Yeah. And so that's, I think, the biggest driving point that we want to be able to elaborate on with anybody that's listening, but also that we do with our customers, the major automakers and any of these fleets that are looking to operate with us, is that this is a way to save time and money. And we're going to talk about the money part first, and then we'll talk about the time. So in comparative analysis that we've even received recently, when we look at other wireless charging competitors, we're seeing usually something in the range of 80 to 90% cost savings with HEVO versus their products. And kind of just to get to the point, our bidirectional 11 kilowatt system on the vehicle side, the cost of the vehicle side equipment is targeted for $250. The majority of competitors that we have had any detailed data from, that we've received from we'll say other automakers and folks that have helped out with getting some of that data to some level of degree, of course they can't give us everything, is that we're hearing that on vehicle cost ranges from $2,500 to $30,000. That's just, you cannot accomplish the point of adoption if your costs are going to be so high. So Omar, why is it that our hardware is so much cheaper for vehicles and for charging than other competitors out there? What have we done that has made our equipment that better in the form of price versus our competitors?
So to answer that, the couple of things that the competitors did, or we did differently, I would say, if I had to compare us against our competition, has been the way we have designed the electronics around a bunch of the systems. We were always in our estimation were heavier on the ground side and lighter on the vehicle side in terms of cost symmetry.
Yeah.
And by architecture, we always thought that the amount of ground versus ground side equipment versus vehicle side equipment, there will be a big disparity in terms of how much ground side equipment will be deployed versus its vehicle counterpart. And just keeping that philosophy in mind, the electronics, the controls, the whole power path was designed in such a way that whatever was less in quantity got the most amount of technology in it, and whatever was the least in quantity and whatever was most in quantity had, in comparison, less technology, which helped us for two things, by the way, just so there is a side note. It helped us right away in how much packaging we required on the vehicle side, because we did not want it to burden the vehicle in general by extra weight or by extra complexity, which could also be a failure point. And secondly, we wanted the vehicle the manufacturability on the high quantity side to be able to be leveraged as well. In that case, how much mass production we could leverage, but less amount of parts common across the board for a variety of applications. So that's a couple of philosophical, I would say, approaches which I've later on, now this is hindsight, when we I would say analyze us versus the others, come up, I would say, very clearly between the two type of approaches.
We had no other choice to compete at price, clearly, and we took that approach very sincerely because it wasn't meant to be a pilot program. We always meant it to be a production program.
Correct.
And yeah,
Yeah, so as Jeremy, exactly you are saying, I totally agree with you in the sense that from the get-go, we designed as if this was the end product, not a lab prototype, not something we could, just demo and then think about the rest of it later. It was designed as a practical implementation of this technology from the get-go. Every aspect of the design speaks to that, to that level of philosophy, and the second part is that as we were trying to package it, we also, I would say, to some level, discovered that the issue has been in price always in the way the things were packaged. And a certain technology has to be chosen so that it's package friendly. If we cannot package it, there is no off taker of the tech. It would look like the size of a car, and no think people will say, what, do I need to buy another truck to haul your equipment along with my car? It would not be practical in many implementations. Case in point is our 25 kilowatt to 100 kilowatt designs, which are now using a different kind of technology altogether. And there are many ways to deliver this power, but the smartest way, and I would say the most compact way, is our polyphased approach, which is directly speaking to the same design language, I would say, that speaks to practicality of the end product. And then these things all add up. They all add up in terms of, is it mass manufacturable, which leads to, of course, controls on how much cost it would be to the end client. If it's not mass manufacturable, of course, it's one-offs. It will be exuberant cost. Nobody will be able to buy it. Secondly, is it usable in terms of size, shape, format, and of course, its liability. So, and if none of these things work out, of course, then it will just be a kind of a pipe dream or a lab prototype. And as I said earlier too, every aspect of our design speaks to that level of, I would say, that kind of philosophy overall. So compactness of design has led us to leverage mass production costs, which actually end up as cost reduction overall of the end product. We don't want it to be more expensive than the vehicle's energy source. It has to
yeah,
be
that's
a
right.
complementary material, that does not produce additional friction from the automotive sector in this particular case of adoption of this tech. So I mean, that's in a
It's funny you bring up the cost, because that's what drives the production intent programs with the automakers. And actually, we've had a couple of questions, and if anybody else has any questions, go ahead and throw them into the Q&A now, please. And so as Omar is talking about the price and the cost of this, I think one of the questions that we received also from Samir Rashid is that people are obviously understanding the why now and the why us, and that automakers agree. So what is some of the advanced production intent programs? Well, obviously we can't go to too deep details, but we have two major automaker programs that we're involved with at the moment. And the reason why we were selected over our competitors, which it was a competitive process to win that business, was because we had the best product with performance and price by a long shot. On average, 80 to 90%, like I stated, better priced. And just the overall technology architecture, being able to do bidirectional charging as well. Excuse me. That was one of the other primary objectives. So we have been, at this point, selected by two major automakers as the reference design by their chief technology officers for wireless charging to be put onto vehicles starting in 2027, 2028 at the earliest, with some of them even having production intent and 29 as well. And so with these two automakers, right now we're looking at HEVO potentially being on 7 new vehicle platforms. So wireless charging is predominantly being a new technology introduced onto new vehicle designs that have production intent release for 2027 to 2029. And we do see that starting to expand. The relationship between autonomy, electric vehicles, and wireless charging is pushing that conversation much faster these days. It was something that almost never came up in conversation. And now we have it in conversation with almost anybody that we speak with about having these kinds of level of capabilities. So Stuart Brown asked, what is bidirectional charging? There's different forms of it, but the answer to that is we provide a way for the car to be a power wall back to the home in the case of a brownout or a blackout. Eventually, we could go back to the grid with the power and help to supply power back to the grid from the battery. And obviously, the person that owns that car could potentially make money in that way, but there's a lot of regulatory hurdles that you got to get over in order to even achieve something like that. But using the vehicle as a battery pack or as a power wall to power the home in the form of a brownout or a blackout when those times happen, that's automatic. And so this is a huge upside, especially in places where there's not a lot of redundancy yet. So thank you for that question, Stuart. Thank you for that question, Samir.
May I add something already? Like a lot of vehicles,
Sure.
especially in the truck market, Jeremy, are giving people these connectors, the existing vehicles, to be
Yeah.
able to run their houses or their connected loads from the same car. So we are kind of giving them the same opportunity through the bidirectional method to do it seamlessly without plugging anything in. So
Yeah, that's exactly right.
yeah.
So we're going to wind it down here and bring this thing home. First, thank you to the panelists, Ross, Charles, Omar, and obviously Alex, our co-host. Thank you today for your commentary, for your insights, for your expertise, for your friendship, and for being an important partner and investor to HEVO. And secondly, thank you to everybody that has joined today. Grateful to be able to announce that before we even really launched our official Series A2, we've already have oversubscribed our current investment, and we're continuing to do so. So if you would like to continue with your investment and to increase it, please do by going to the WeFunder /HEVO, I believe is what it is. Alex, is that correct? Anyways, we'll send out the link. If you haven't received it, you've probably received a lot of emails from us recently. And then thirdly, where is this all leading eventually? We see the Reg CF leading to what is known as a Reg A plus, which is the first exit opportunity for investors. We're not saying it's going to exactly play out this way, but what we do know is that we will work on closing out up to 5 million in our current actual priced round of the 60 million pre that is currently our Series A2. And then after we get to a level that we feel comfortable to be able to move on, we'll go on to a Reg A plus, and we'll be able to raise up to 75 million on a 12-month cycle every 12 months. And there's an opportunity there for secondary sale as well for our investors. So our target right now is that we can successfully close out the Series A2 WeFunder Reg CF by Thanksgiving, have a few new commercial important topics to bring to the table in terms of commercial milestones, and then launch the Reg A Plus at the beginning of 2026 and start working towards a process that could even allow for a secondary sale for our investors. So we're topically on top of this thing right now. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Alex for the final closeout, and then we'll be seeing everybody who does join at our annual general meeting or at the AGM, which is going to be on Monday, June 30th. You'll receive an email about that early next week with the registration link. All right, over to you, Alex.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Jeremy, Omar, Charles, Ross. Really appreciate it. To everyone who joined, I hope this was really informative. We have some additional questions coming in at the end here. So if you have questions, if they're coming up now or afterwards, feel free to go to the WeFunder page. There's a place where you can drop in your questions and we'll make sure those are answered. Again, the URL there is wefunder.com/HEVO, and you'll see lots more information there. Really appreciate it. This is a really exciting time for HEVO. We hope you all join us as investors. Thank you so much.